My hands have never been pretty. They have 14 scars from kitchen burns, 3 from knife slips, and a permanent discoloration across the knuckles from years of working with habanero and ghost peppers without gloves because I was young and stupid and thought toughness meant the same thing as not feeling pain. My hands are the hands of a man who has spent his entire adult life building things that other people consume: dishes, sauces, meals, flavors, things that disappear into other people's bodies and are forgotten by dessert. On November 19th, 2024, a Tuesday afternoon, those hands were shaking so badly I couldn't hold the piece of paper I was trying to read. I was standing in the kitchen of my one-bedroom apartment on Bristol Street in Santa Ana, California, holding a document I had just pulled from a briefcase that a lawyer had carried through my front door 7 minutes ago, and my hands were doing something they had never done in 20 years of professional cooking. They were trembling. Not from heat, not from cold, not from the 18-hour shifts I used to pull at Serafina when we were doing 200 covers on a Saturday night. From shock. The kind of shock that rewires your understanding of everything that has happened to you and everything that is about to happen next. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me start where it started. Let me start with the hands. I grew up in San Pedro, California, the port town at the southern tip of Los Angeles, where the container ships come in from Asia, and the air smells like diesel and fish, and the particular ambition of people who live near things that are going somewhere else. My mother, Paloma Delgado, raised me alone. My father left when I was 6, drove to work one morning and kept driving, all the way to somewhere we never found out. My mother didn't chase him. She went to work. She was a cafeteria worker at Leland Elementary School. She made breakfast and lunch for 400 kids 5 days a week for 30 years. She taught me to cook, not in the way culinary school teaches you, with techniques and terminology and the proper way to julienne a carrot. She taught me the way her mother taught her in a kitchen in Guadalajara by feel. A pinch of this, a handful of that, taste it, adjust, taste it again. Your hands know things your head doesn't, mijo, she used to say, pressing a ball of masa between her palms. Trust your hands. I trusted my hands. They took me through culinary school at Le Cordon Bleu in Pasadena, on a scholarship I almost didn't apply for because I didn't think kids from San Pedro got scholarships to French cooking schools. They took me through 6 years of kitchen work at restaurants up and down the coast, from prep cook to line cook to sous chef. And in 2014, when I was 30, they took me to Serafina. Serafina was a fine dining restaurant on Pacific Coast Highway in Newport Beach. Italian-inspired, California ingredients, the kind of place where a plate of handmade pasta cost $42 and was worth every penny because the pasta was made by my hands, rolled and cut and cooked with the precision of a man who believed that feeding people was the closest thing to prayer he would ever practice. I was the executive chef. 7 years, 2014 to 2021. 200 covers on a busy night. A kitchen team of 12. A wine list that could make a sommelier weep. A review at the Los Angeles Times that called my braised lamb shank transcendent, which is a word I had to look up because my vocabulary was better in the kitchen than it was on paper. I met Camille Fontana at Serafina. She came in for dinner on a Tuesday night in March of 2013 with 2 friends. I sent out a complimentary amuse-bouche, a tiny cup of chilled cucumber soup with a dot of chili oil, because that's what chefs do when they want to show off for a beautiful woman without leaving the kitchen. She sent back a note on a cocktail napkin. The soup was perfect. The chef should come say hello. I went and said hello. I was 29, wearing chef's whites with sauce stains on the sleeve, smelling like garlic and rosemary and the particular intensity of a man who had been cooking for 11 hours. She was 26, wearing something expensive and simple that made her look like she had stepped out of an architectural magazine. She had dark hair, her father's Italian bone structure, and a smile that made me forget that I had $300 in my checking account and she had arrived in a Mercedes. We dated for 2 years. Married in April of 2015. Big wedding, Pelican Hill Resort, 300 guests, a reception that cost more than my mother had earned in 5 years. I didn't pay for it. Gianni Fontana, Camille's father, paid for everything. He also gave us a house, a 5-bedroom, 4,200-square-foot mansion on a hill in Newport Coast with a view of the Pacific that looked like something God had designed on a day when he was feeling particularly generous. The house was worth $6.3 million. I didn't know that at the time. I just knew it was the most beautiful place I had ever lived, and that every morning I woke up in it, I felt like I was borrowing someone else's life. I was. Johnny Fontana was a quiet man, 56 when I married his daughter, built like a fireplace, with thick hands that told the story of a man who had started with nothing. He came to the United States from Calabria, Italy in 1970. He was 11 years old. His father was a stonemason. His mother cleaned offices. They landed in Tustin, Orange County, with 2 suitcases and a phone number for a cousin who turned out to have moved to New Jersey 3 months earlier. Gianni didn't talk about those years much, but I could see them in his hands. The same calluses I had, the same scars, the same permanent darkening of the skin that comes from years of physical work. He built Fontana Development Group from a single strip mall he purchased in Tustin in 1988 with every dollar he had saved from 10 years of construction work. By 2024, he owned 23 commercial properties across Orange County and the Inland Empire. His net worth was somewhere north of $90 million. He never acted like it. He drove a 10-year-old Lexus. He ate at the same Italian restaurant in Tustin every Thursday. Enzo's, red checkered tablecloths, $14 chicken parm. He wore clothes that his wife, Francesca, described as embarrassing, which meant they were practical, comfortable, and not designed to impress anyone. Gianni liked me. I knew that from the beginning, not because he said it, but because of the way he looked at my hands. At the wedding, while everyone else was dancing, he pulled me aside and said, in his accented English that still carried Calabria in every vowel, "You work with your hands. I work with my hands. The people who work with their hands, they build the world. The people who don't, they just live in it." That was the most Gianni had ever said to me at one time. It was also the most important thing anyone said to me that day. Francesca Fontana was a different species. She was 62 in 2024, had never worked a day in her life, and had spent 40 years converting Gianni's money into social status with the efficiency of a machine designed for exactly that purpose. Country club memberships, charity galas, a wardrobe that rotated seasonally and cost more annually than my mother's house was worth. She had married Gianni in 1985 when he was a 26-year-old construction worker with a dream, and she had spent the subsequent decades making sure that dream served her vision of what life should look like. She never approved of me, not once. Not when I was the executive chef at Serafina, which she tolerated because it was prestigious enough to mention at her charity lunches. My son-in-law runs a restaurant in Newport Beach, very exclusive. And certainly not after I left. Francesca's disapproval was not loud, it was surgical. It came in comments delivered at family dinners with the precision of a scalpel, designed to cut without leaving visible marks. "Ronan, have you thought about management positions? Executive chefs have a shelf life, you know." "Camille, didn't you say Ronan was looking into business opportunities? Something with more upward mobility." "I was talking to Christine's husband. He's in venture capital. And he said the restaurant industry has a 60% failure rate. Isn't that alarming?" Each comment was a brick. Over 9 years, she built a wall between Camille and me, and she did it so gradually, so carefully, that neither of us saw it going up until it was too high to see over. In 2021, I left Serafina. The pandemic had gutted fine dining. We'd been doing takeout and delivery for months, which is like asking a surgeon to perform operations through the mail. I was burned out, 37 years old, and the fire that had driven me since culinary school was down to embers. I needed something new, something mine. I started Vossfire, hot sauce, artisanal, small batch, handcrafted. I rented a commercial kitchen in Costa Mesa, sourced peppers from local farms, and started developing recipes that fused my mother's Mexican heat with the technique I'd learned in French and Italian cooking. The first batch was a smoked habanero with roasted garlic and black lime. I sold it at the Costa Mesa Farmers Market on a Saturday morning in September 2021. I brought 40 bottles, I sold 37. It wasn't a fortune, it was a start. Francesca saw it as the end. He quit Serafina to make hot sauce. I overheard her say this to Camille on the phone. Not to me, never to me directly. Always through Camille. Always with the casual cruelty of a woman who had decided that my value was determined by my job title, and a hot sauce maker didn't rank. "He'll never amount to anything, Camille. I told you when you married him. A chef from San Pedro. What did you expect?" What Camille expected, I don't know. What she got was a husband who came home every night smelling like peppers instead of truffles, who was making $38,000 a year instead of $120,000, who had traded a prestigious kitchen for a rented commercial space and a folding table at a farmer's market. I understand that's not what she signed up for. I understand that people change and expectations shift, and sometimes love isn't enough to bridge the gap between who someone is and who you wanted them to be. What I don't understand is letting your mother make the decision for you. The divorce was filed in February 2024. Francesca's fingerprints were on every page. She hired the attorney, Felicity Strand, the same high-powered family law shark I'd heard about from other guys in the industry who'd lost everything in their divorces. She coached Camille through every meeting, every filing, every strategy session. She was the general. Camille was the soldier. And I was the target. The hearing was in May 2024. I had a lawyer, a decent one I could barely afford, a guy from a strip mall office in Garden Grove who did his best against a woman who billed $700 an hour. The outcome was predetermined. Francesca made sure of that. She took the stand. My mother-in-law took the stand at my divorce hearing and testified against me. Your Honor, I have watched my daughter's husband abandon a promising career to pursue a hobby. He makes hot sauce in a rented kitchen. He sells it at farmers markets. He cannot provide for my grandchildren at even a basic level. My daughter has been the sole financial anchor of this family for 3 years. Then the line. The one I'll hear in my sleep for the rest of my life. He'll never amount to anything. She said it looking at the judge, not at me. She wouldn't look at me. But the courtroom heard it. Camille heard it. My lawyer heard it. And I heard it sitting in the only suit I owned, a navy one I'd bought at Nordstrom Rack 4 years ago for a funeral, knowing that the woman who had eaten my cooking at every holiday dinner for 9 years had just told a judge that I was worthless. I said nothing. The judge awarded Camille primary custody of Nico and Gemma. I got weekends. The mansion, the $6.3 million mansion on the hill in Newport Coast, the house that Gianni Fontana had given us, was awarded to Camille as the primary residence for the children. I was ordered to pay child support based on imputed income, meaning the court calculated what I should be earning based on my career history, not what I was actually earning from hot sauce and diner shifts. I walked out of that courtroom with a suitcase, a box of kitchen equipment, and 4 bottles of Voss fire-smoked habanero that I had in the trunk of my car because I was supposed to go to the farmer's market after the hearing. I went to the farmer's market, set up my table, sold my sauce, came home to a 1-bedroom apartment on Bristol Street in Santa Ana that I had signed the lease on 2 days earlier, put the unsold bottles in the refrigerator, sat on the floor because I didn't have furniture yet, and stared at the wall until 2 a.m. That was May 2024. For the next 6 months, I did what I've always done when the world knocks me down. I worked. I worked the morning shift at the Golden Spoon Diner on 17th Street, 6 a.m. to 2 p.m., flipping eggs and grilling burgers alongside a cook named Ray, who had been doing it for 22 years, and had the 1,000-yard stare of a man who had made peace with his life even if he hadn't chosen it. I worked the afternoon and evening in my commercial kitchen, making sauce, developing new recipes, filling orders. A specialty store in Laguna Beach had started carrying Voss Fire, then one in Pasadena, then a small chain in San Diego. The business was growing. Slowly, the way real things grow. Not overnight, not explosively, but route by route, bottle by bottle, customer by customer. Every other weekend, I had Nico and Gemma. They slept on an air mattress in my living room because my bedroom was the only actual bedroom, and I gave it to them. Nico was 7. He was old enough to understand that something had changed, but young enough to accept it without fully questioning it. Gemma was 4. She cared about 3 things: her stuffed unicorn, pasta with butter, and whether Daddy was going to be there when she woke up. Daddy, why don't you live in the big house anymore? Because Daddy has his own place now. Is it because of the hot sauce? What do you mean? Grandma Francesca told Mommy that you ruined everything because of the hot sauce. I knelt down and looked at my daughter, 4 years old and already absorbing the poison that her grandmother was pumping into the family water supply. The hot sauce didn't ruin anything, baby. Sometimes grown-ups make changes, and it takes a while for everything to settle. But Daddy is right here, and Daddy's not going anywhere. Promise? Promise. I kept that promise the way I keep all my promises, with my hands, by showing up, by cooking her breakfast, by making sure that every weekend she spent with me felt like home, even if home was a one-bedroom apartment with an air mattress and a kitchen that was smaller than the pantry at the Newport Coast Mansion. On November 19, 2024, 6 months after the divorce was finalized, someone knocked on my apartment door at 2:15 in the afternoon. I was in the kitchen, bottling a new batch of Voss Fire Carolina Gold, a Carolina Reaper and Golden Raisin blend that was either going to be my best seller or my most spectacular failure. My hands were stained yellow from the peppers. My shirt had sauce on it. I looked exactly like what Francesca Fontana thought I was, a man who had traded a real career for a condiment. I opened the door. The man on the other side was in his late 40s, tailored suit, polished shoes, the kind of grooming that said, money without screaming it. He was carrying a leather briefcase that looked like it cost more than my rent. "Mr. Voss? That's me. My name is Dante Corsini. I'm an attorney. I represent Gianni Fontana." I stared at him. My ex-wife's father's lawyer was standing at my door. "Mr. Fontana would like to meet with you, but first he asked me to give you this." He held up the briefcase. "May I come in?" I let him in because I was too confused to say no. He sat at my kitchen table, which was also my dining table, my work desk, and the place where I helped Nico with his homework on weekends. He set the briefcase on the table and opened it, turning it to face me. Inside were documents, neatly organized, tabbed, labeled, and on top of everything a handwritten letter on cream-colored stationery. "Mr. Fontana asked that you read the letter first," Dante said. I picked it up. My hands were shaking. The yellow pepper stains on my fingers looked strange against the expensive paper. "Dear Ronan, I am writing this because I cannot say it to your face without my voice breaking, and I am an old Italian man who does not cry in front of other men even when he should. What my wife and my daughter did to you is wrong. I opposed the divorce. I argued against it. I told Francesca she was destroying something good, and I told Camille she was making a mistake she would regret for the rest of her life. They did not listen because Francesca does not listen, and Camille has never learned to disagree with her mother. I watched you walk out of that courtroom with nothing. I watched my grandson and granddaughter lose their father's daily presents because my wife decided that a man who makes hot sauce is not worthy of her daughter. I have spent the last 6 months watching and thinking, and I have decided that watching is no longer enough. What you will find in this briefcase will change your life. I know this because I built my own life from nothing, and I know what it looks like when a man is ready to build. You are ready. You have always been ready. You just needed someone to see it. My wife told the judge you would never amount to anything. She is wrong. She has been wrong about many things, but she has never been more wrong than she is about you. Your hands build things, Ronan, like my hands, like my father's hands. The people who build things, they are the ones who matter. Everyone else is just living in what we built. Come see me at Enzo's on Thursday. We will eat chicken parm and talk about your future. Bring your hot sauce. I want to try the new one. Johnny, I set the letter down, picked it up, read it again, set it down again. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. The documents, Dante said, are organized in 4 sections. May I walk you through them? Please. Section 1. He pulled out a thick stack of legal papers. The mansion in Newport Coast, the property awarded to your ex-wife in the divorce, it was never hers to receive. He laid out the trust documents. The property was purchased in 2015 by Fontana Development Group and held in the Fontana Family Trust. Mr. Fontana allowed your family to reside there, but ownership was never transferred to Camille. The property was misrepresented during the divorce proceedings as a marital asset. It is not, it belongs to the trust, and Mr. Fontana, as the trustee, is revoking your ex-wife's right to occupy it. She will receive a 90-day notice to vacate. I stared at him. The house isn't hers? It never was. The attorney representing your ex-wife either failed to conduct proper due diligence on the property's ownership or deliberately misrepresented it to the court. Either way, the divorce settlement was based on fraudulent information. Section 2. Another stack. Mr. Fontana is prepared to invest $2 million in Voss Fire LLC. He has had your product evaluated by food industry consultants. He believes it can be scaled into a national brand. He's proposing a partnership, his capital, your product, and leadership. You would serve as CEO. He would be a silent investor. $2 million. I made hot sauce in a rented kitchen and sold it from a folding table, and this man was offering me $2 million. Section 3. Illegal filing. Based on the fraudulent property misrepresentation, I have prepared a motion to reopen the divorce settlement. If the court finds that the financial representations were materially false, which they were, the entire settlement can be vacated. This includes custody. Custody? The custody arrangement was based in part on the financial disparity between you and your ex-wife. If that disparity was manufactured through fraud, the court has grounds to modify custody. I believe we can achieve 50-50 at minimum. I couldn't speak. I was sitting in a one-bedroom apartment that smelled like Carolina Reapers, holding documents that contained more money, more possibility, and more justice than I had ever imagined, existing in the same room as me. Section 4. Dante pulled out the last document, a single piece of paper. A personal note from Mr. Fontana. He asked me to read it to you. He read, "My wife and my daughter treated you the way my father was treated when he came to this country, like he was nothing, like he would never amount to anything. He built an empire. I think you will too. This is my investment in that belief." I put my head in my hands. The pepper stains on my fingers pressed against my forehead. I breathed in the smell of habanero and Carolina Reaper and the particular chemical truth of a man who works with his hands every day, and I cried. Not for long. Not dramatically. Just a few seconds of something releasing. Something that had been locked inside my chest since the day Francesca looked at the judge and said I was worthless. It came out in 3 breaths, and then it was done, and I wiped my face and looked at Dante Corsini. When can I meet him? Thursday, Enzo's. Tustin, noon. Tell him I'll bring the Carolina Gold. Thursday, Enzo's Italian restaurant, 1st Street, Tustin. Red checkered tablecloths. The smell of garlic bread and simmering marinara. A television in the corner playing soccer. The kind of restaurant that hasn't changed its menu since 1997 because it doesn't need to. Johnny Fontana was already seated when I arrived. He was wearing a flannel shirt and khakis, looking like a retired foreman, not a man worth $95 million. His hands were wrapped around a glass of red wine. His face had the expression of a man who had been thinking about this meeting for a long time and had finally decided what he wanted to say. I sat across from him. Set a bottle of Vossfire Carolina Gold on the table between us. He picked it up, examined the label, opened it, poured a drop onto his bread plate, dipped a piece of bread in it, chewed slowly. "This is very good," he said. "Thank you. Very, very good. You could sell this in Italy. Italians would go crazy for this. That's the plan. Eventually." He set the bottle down, looked at me with eyes that I recognized because I had seen them in the mirror every morning since I was 6 years old. The eyes of a man whose father left and who spent the rest of his life proving that the leaving was the father's loss, not the son's. "I'm sorry," he said. "For what?" "For Francesca, for Camille, for what they did to you." He shook his head. "Francesca, she is my wife. I love her. But she does not understand what it means to build something from nothing. She married me when I was a construction worker, and for 40 years she has been trying to pretend I was never a construction worker. She wants the money without the hands that made it. She wants the empire without the labor, and she taught Camille the same thing. Camille isn't her mother. No, but Camille has spent her whole life trying to become her mother. And when she married you, Francesca saw a threat. A man who was proud of his hands, a man who didn't want to pretend. Francesca cannot tolerate people who refuse to pretend. Why now, Yanni? Why are you doing this now?" He leaned forward. "Because I watched you walk out of that courtroom. I watched you walk out with nothing. And I saw my father. I saw myself, 11 years old, standing in the airport in New York with 2 suitcases and a phone number that didn't work. I saw every man who has ever been told he is nothing by someone who has never built anything." He tapped the table with his finger. "And I decided that I did not build everything I have to watch my own family use it to destroy a good man." We ate chicken parm. We drank red wine. We talked about hot sauce and commercial real estate and what it means to build something that outlasts you. 2 men from working-class families, one from San Pedro and one from Calabria, who understood each other in ways that the women who had married them never could. At the end of the meal, Gianni shook my hand. His grip was iron. His palm was rough, the hand of a builder. "Build something, Ronan. Build something so big that when my wife says your name, she has to say it with respect." "I will." and take care of my grandchildren. They need a father who works with his hands, not a mother who works with her mirror. I drove back to Santa Ana with the bottle of wine Gianni had insisted I take, and a feeling in my chest that I hadn't felt in years. Not happiness exactly. Something more structural than happiness. Foundation. The feeling of standing on solid ground after months of free fall. The legal process moved quickly. Dante Corsini was very good at his job, and the trust documents were unambiguous. The Newport Coast mansion belonged to Fontana Development Group, not to Camille Voss. The divorce court had awarded property that wasn't the petitioner's to receive. When Dante filed the motion to reopen the settlement, Felicity Strand, Camille's attorney, requested a meeting. At that meeting, Dante presented the trust documents, the original purchase records, and a certified letter from the trustee, Gianni Fontana, confirming that no ownership transfer had ever been executed. Felicity Strand went quiet in a way that expensive attorneys go quiet when they realize they've built a case on a foundation that doesn't exist. My client was told the property was hers, Felicity said carefully. By whom? Dante asked. By her mother. Her mother is not the trustee. Her mother is not a named beneficiary of the trust. Her mother has no legal authority over the property whatsoever. Dante slid another document across the table. Mrs. Francesca Fontana's sole connection to the Fontana family trust is as the spouse of the trustee. She has no independent ownership interest, no signatory authority, and no legal basis for representing the property as a marital asset in your client's divorce. The settlement was reopened in January 2025. Camille received a 90-day notice to vacate the mansion. Custody was revisited. The court found that the financial representations made during the original hearing were materially misleading, and that the disparity between the parties had been artificially inflated. Custody was modified to 50-50. Francesca called Gianni the night the eviction notice was served. I know this because Gianni told me about it the following Thursday at Enzo's, between bites of eggplant parm. She screamed for 45 minutes, he said, cutting his eggplant with the calm precision of a man who had heard 40 years of screaming and had developed immunity. She called me a traitor. She said I was destroying the family. She said I was siding with the help. The help? That's what she calls you, the help, like you are a servant. He took a sip of wine. I told her that the help built a company from nothing, which is more than she has ever done. Then I hung up. How did she take that? She called back 9 times. I didn't answer. I was watching the soccer. He shrugged. Juventus was playing. Camille moved out of the mansion in March 2025. She and Francesca rented a 3-bedroom house in Irvine, comfortable, but a universe away from Newport Coast. The adjustment was, by all accounts, painful. Francesca, who had spent 40 years building an identity around the appearance of limitless wealth, was now living in a rental in Irvine. The country club membership was revoked when Gianni stopped paying the dues. The charity galas stopped calling when the mansion address was no longer on the invitation list. Camille called me once, in April. Ronan, I need to talk to you. Okay. I'm sorry, for what my mother said in court, for what she did, for all of it. Are you sorry for what you did? Silence. A long one. I should have fought harder, for us, for you. But my mother... Your mother said what she thought. You believed it. That's the part that hurt, Camille. Not that Francesca thought I was nothing. That you agreed with her. More silence. Then quietly, I didn't agree. I just didn't disagree. That's the same thing, she cried. I listened. Because I still loved her in the way you love someone who was part of your life for 11 years and gave you 2 children and once looked at you like you were enough. But love and trust are different animals, and one of them was dead. Take care of the kids, I said. Be their mother. That's what matters now. And you? I'm building something. 8 months have passed since Dante Corsini knocked on my door. It's July 2025 now. Southern California summer, the kind of heat that turns the freeways into griddles and the beaches into therapy. Voss Fire is in 340 stores across California. We just signed a distribution deal with a specialty food distributor that covers the entire West Coast. Revenue projection for the first full year of scaled operations, $1.2 million. I have a team now, 4 employees, a real commercial kitchen in Costa Mesa that's 3 times the size of the old one, a delivery van with the Voss Fire logo on the side. The smoked habanero is the best seller. The Carolina Gold is gaining. And I'm developing a new one, a mango ghost pepper that Mateo says will either change the industry or burn it down. Mateo Reyes, my old sous chef from Serafina, left his food truck and came to work with me. He's the operations manager. He handles logistics. I handle the cooking. The partnership works because we've been standing next to each other in kitchens for 15 years, and we communicate in the language of people who build things. Grunts, nods, hand gestures, and the occasional profanity when the peppers are too hot and the deadlines are too close. Johnny visits the kitchen once a month. He doesn't interfere. He doesn't micromanage. He walks through, tastes whatever I'm working on, nods or shakes his head and leaves. Last month he tried the mango ghost pepper, held very still for about 10 seconds while the heat hit, then said, "This one. This is the one." He was sweating. His eyes were watering. He was smiling. Nico is 8 now. He comes to the kitchen on Saturdays and helps me label bottles. He's meticulous about it, lining up the labels with a precision that makes me think he might be an engineer someday, or a chef, or whatever he wants to be, because his father will be there either way. Gemma is 5. She helps by eating ingredients before they go into the pot. She has developed a tolerance for mild peppers that is frankly alarming for a 5-year-old. Last week she ate a slice of jalapeno without flinching and said, "More, Daddy." Mateo looked at me and said, "That's your daughter, all right." My mother came to see the new kitchen last month. Paloma Voss, 64 years old, retired school cafeteria worker from San Pedro. She walked through the facility, looked at the equipment, the bottles on the shelves, the team working the production line, and she stood in the middle of it all with her hand over her mouth. "Mijo," she said, "you built this?" "Yeah, Mama, I built this." "With your hands?" "With my hands." She pulled me into a hug so tight I couldn't breathe. She smelled like the kitchen she had worked in for 30 years, like flour and oil and the love of a woman who feeds 400 children every day because somebody has to, and she decided it would be her. "Your hands," she said, holding them up, looking at the scars and the stains and the calluses. "Your hands built this." "You taught me how, Mama." "No, I taught you to cook. God taught you to build." I'm in my kitchen right now. The real one, the commercial one, the one with the Voss Fire logo on the door and the smell of roasting peppers in the air. It's 5:30 in the morning. The team won't be here for 2 hours. I'm alone with my knives and my cutting board, and the first batch of the day, I think about what Francesca said in that courtroom. He'll never amount to anything. I think about it every morning, not because it hurts anymore, because it fuels me. Every bottle I fill, every store that carries my sauce, every customer who tastes something I made with my hands and says this is good, this is really good. Every single one of those moments is an answer to her words. Not a loud answer, not a dramatic one, just the quiet, steady answer of a man who works with his hands and has learned that the things you build are louder than the things people say about you. Johnny Fontana saw that in me before I saw it in myself. He looked across a table at Enzo's and saw his own father, saw his own hands, saw the builder underneath the hot sauce stains and the diner uniform and the Nordstrom rack suit. He invested in me not because he pitied me, but because he recognized me. One builder to another, one pair of hands to another. My mother-in-law told the judge I would never amount to anything. My father-in-law handed me a briefcase and said, "Build." I'm building. Now I want to ask you something. What would you do if the person who destroyed your marriage turned out to have a parent who believed in you more than their own child did? Would you accept help from your ex-wife's family? Or would pride keep you from taking the one hand that was reaching for you while every other hand was pushing you away? And here's the deeper question. Have you ever been told you would never amount to anything? By a boss, a spouse, a parent, a stranger? And did you prove them wrong? Or are you still building? Because if you're still building, that's okay. That's more than okay. That's the whole point. The building never stops, the hands never stop, the work never stops, and the people who said you were nothing will eventually run out of words while you just keep building. Drop your answer in the comments. I read every single one. If this story hit you somewhere deep, hit that like button. Share it with someone who's been told they'll never amount to anything and is proving them wrong one day at a time. Comment your thoughts below and subscribe to the channel so you never miss another story. I'll see you in the next one.